So as I'm sure you guys know, the Eagles has won the Super Bowl against the New England Patriots. And, as these kind of championship games happen with President Trump in office, a lot of people are going to either be talking about not visiting the White House, which is a tradition of the team that wins, to go. And now we have some people who are essentially protesting the visit by protesting Trump. So now the three that we now know are part of that are safety Malcolm Jenkins, defensive end Chris Long, and wide receiver Torrey Smith. Now, these are all very big time players. Malcolm Jenkins and Torrey Smith definitely are very big time players. Malcolm Jenkins used to be on the Saints, so I was a big fan of him at the time, definitely. Torrey Smith, a big time wide receiver, as well as Chris Long as well. He's a pretty big player now too, and a very popular one because of his stance as well. So now here's what this article from ESPN says. It says, safety Malcolm Jenkins, defensive end Chris Long, and wide receiver Torrey Smith are among the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles who will decline an invitation to the White House if President Trump offers one. Quote, going to the White House should be seen as an honor, and I believe it is an honor, but to me it has to be an honor with the right type of respect in office. I just don't see it, Smith said. That's Torrey Smith. He says, it's not about politics. I just don't think the president is a good person. I don't want to go out of my way to see someone who isn't even welcoming the men in the locker room in our different cultures. It says Jenkins, Long, and Smith have been three of the NFL's most active players in working for social change, and it goes on to talk about some of that stuff. Here's what they also says is, I don't want to take away from anybody's experience or make it a big distraction. It's a celebratory event, and I want the guys who chose to go or whatever to enjoy that. That's what Malcolm Jenkins said. It says, me personally, because it's not a meeting or a sit down or anything like that, I'm just not interested in the photo op. Over the last 2 years, I've been meeting with legislators, both Republican and Democrat. It don't matter. If you want to meet to talk about events in my community, changing the country, I'm all for that. But this isn't one of those meetings, so I'll opt out of the photo opportunity. So, they're declining going there, and I think that Malcolm Jenkins, what he said is pretty good, as well as what Torrey Smith said. Well, Malcolm Jenkins said about how, I'm not interested in the photo op. I think that that's a really good stance to take because really, someone got pissed at Chris Long for saying, hey, why don't you go to him and tell him, yo, this is what you're doing wrong. But Chris Long was like, he pretended not to know who the KKK were when asked, and other shit like that. And that type of stuff is irreconcilable. And so what he says here is pretty good because it is just a photo op. There is no, hey, let's sit down, let's have a talk, let's talk about your community, what's going on. None of that shit. It's like, let's get a photo op, have the photos go down in the history books. Like, no, they're like, yo, we don't want a part of this shit. And I expect the list to grow. Right now it's at 3. I'm sure that it will grow, and we'll see more and more people protesting the Trump admin, as they all should.